Hello, good people. Let me take this chance to welcome you back to this channel dubbed Professor Silas Odongo Knowledge Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise to continue to be back with you. We are on trail talking about climate change research. And today, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to talk to you about qualitative socioeconomic research. Ladies and gentlemen, previously, we talked about quantitative methodology, and we said so many things, including the fact that quantitative methods work closely with positivism. And people would say that the results are normally much more believable. But then we also observed that there is an aspect of a gap that it leaves. So today, allow me to pick through qualitative research and tell you something about it. So qualitative research is also one of the means of inquiry in social issues pertaining to climate change. And just as opposed to quantitative, it tries to get into the people. It tries to delve into the people, studying people generally, interpreting people, making sense of what they think, their experiences. They have a world, so you get into them and try to understand the world the way they see it. You understand the social reality, and you study individuals, or you study groups, or you study institutions, or even cultures. And many researchers have today thought about using this method to explore behaviors, to explore feelings and experiences of people and what lies at the core of their lives. It is sometimes important for us to get to the people and understand the world from their viewpoint. That is the gist of qualitative research. To a large extent, this method, when it came, it actually concentrated a great deal on studying cultures and studying customs so that we can navigate the social processes that we are talking about. So that is qualitative research for you. Qualitative research is supposed to be a very simple method of inquiry, but very impactful because it gets to the details. It's much more in-depth, as in it tries to investigate the how and why the issues happen the way they do. So it traces its roots to philosophies and disciplines like philosophy, history, anthropology, and even the works of those very renowned scholars like Max Weber, George Herbert Mead, and Dilthey. And according to them, this is supposed to be the best method to study socioeconomic or social science, as it were, because it involves studying people, interpreting their circumstances, understanding them. So then the simple principle with this method is you gain access to the people, you listen to them and observe them, and you believe that their experiences are supposed to be very central in understanding what you are investigating. And when you are using this method, the other principle is that experiences differ, so we say they are context bound. So if you use this methodology, you might not expect a lot of generalizability, as it were, because problems can be situational, problems can be context-based. They are not completely precise. Many researchers have always raised concern with qualitative methods, citing lack of objectivity, biasness, and that. And that's why many people would say, so show me which study is not biased, because they say even the most stricter scientific ones are also having biasness introduced at some level. So here in this study, ladies and gentlemen, the value of researchers and their participants go into the study, and they are very central and integral in scientific endeavor that we are dealing with. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it has certain peculiar features that I want to quickly describe to you. The data that you collect from there is not amenable for statistics. It's not numerical. Data have what we call primacy. You just approach people, then you collect rich, in-depth data. And whenever you are using this methodology, you don't care about using theory, because the research itself can lead to theory generation. So it is much more inductive than didactic, as we have been able to say before. So research is just that simple. Number two, research is context-bound, and researchers are normally very context-sensitive, as it were. They get into you, study and describe your location, They believe in the participants' work because that is what gives them the understanding of what they want to describe. So there is a bit of immersion into the setting. So you observe, you question, you listen and describe the culture and focus on the process rather than the product of the same research. Other people also think that this method is important because of the emic perspective. So we have the emic and ethic. So ethic is the researcher and emic is the research. So it centers a great deal on emic, on the research. You can refer to Pike, 1954. And this is, you say the experiences of participants are highly regarded. And this does not mean that the research can be taken away by the researched. Then the other issue that people also think about this research is that bit of thick descriptions. If you read somebody called Gates, 1973, he says that if you are using this approach to study, then you just have a detailed portrayal of participants' experiences. So you have what he described as deep, dense, and detailed account of problematic experiences. That's what you do. So what your work is to just give the visual pictures of the setting, of the events and situations as they were. And sometimes you report the verbatim. And the way researchers normally relate with the research is such that it is some very close. So you take a non-judgmental stance where you expect to learn and agree to learn from them, because essentially you are learning. And data that you collect, normally you collect as you process. So you don't imagine you would be collecting while you disengage yourself from the data. Data collection and processing, they go hand in hand. So in terms of the differences between this approach and the quantitative one, it could be as simple as this. With regard to the aim, here, if we are studying using qualitative methods, so we want to explore the feelings and we want to generate new theories. While the other one, we had said, you want to objectively study the aim of critiquing existing theory, as it were. In terms of approach, this method is very peculiar again because it is broad focused. It's not very much reductionist in approach. So we say the process is what matters and the context matters even much more if you were to include the natural context where the study is taking place. In terms of the sample, you don't pay so much attention to sample and sampling designs beforehand, just like they do in desktop studies. So here, the major principle guiding how many people you can study is that thing we call saturation. Once you have been able to study and you reach saturation level where nobody is giving you any further different results, then you might want to focus and stop there. So we are talking about data collection methods. You make it simple, relying on only in-depth and unstructured interviews. You can use participation and in its naturalistic version. You can use participatory observation. So you work with these people, you work with the team. And in terms of the way you manage the data, remember we had said data that is collected here exists in terms of stories, in terms of narrations, in terms of experiences, in terms of their perceptions only. So you probably just use what we call thematic analysis, content analysis, or some people would even go to the extent of using grounded theory or constant comparative ethnographies, tell you what those ones mean. So the outcome of this kind of study, the outcome is largely a story. So you generate a story, an ethnography, or even a theory, or even a narrative. And that is why many people, many researchers are not interested in it, because why they ask, what will they do with a story? They're not storytellers or historians. So then we look at the researcher and the research that are so close, such that it is not possible for suspicion to exist. Even though sometimes people raise ethical questions. So how close should a researcher and the research be? Is it possible to be misused, for example? And how do they test rigor, for example? Here, rigor has got to do with just naturalism, truthfulness, typicality, and transferability. So we are not going to tell you that rigor means the number of people who you have studied, the confidence level, but we, as much as possible, make it simple to refer to or to really be controlled by truthfulness and typicality. You can imagine that. So in qualitative research, the driving force, the driving questions revolve around why and how and in what way. Those are the questions that we ask. So if somebody was to give you a project or a research proposal so that you can determine whether it is quantitative or qualitative, you just check the kind of questions that researchers have asked. If they have been able to ask to what extent, what, where, what level, then you know that is quantitative. But if they ask questions like why, how, what way, then you know very quickly that you are going much deeper than you could expect. And the various designs that they use talk about phenomenology. So the main intention of qualitative studies is to describe something that exists. If you were to use phenomenology, events, situations, and experiences, and even concepts are supposed to be studied with the assumption that there is just a gap in our understanding of the situation which we need to elucidate, we need to investigate. Then the other design that we use frequently is ethnography. You studying people's culture, and probably this happens over a long time for you to be compatible with people, to understand them and to describe them. You require extensive field work, and you require use methodologies like formal and informal interviews. You engage participation, and it's kind of time consuming. The other design that is used here is grounded theory. Look at Glaser and Strauss, for example. You develop new theories by collecting fresh data, analyzing that data. So the theories just emanate from the study that you have held, for example. So compared to quantitative, this is what could be called research then theory approach. You begin a research without a theory, but you end up having findings that can lead to a theory. So many people say that the reason why there is a dearth in theorizing particularly is because of the approach that we take. If you take the quantitative, you obviously will be able to parade people's theory and demonstrate how they influence your study, and they will end up controlling you so that you only get data and interpretations which are in line with that, which is different from what we are saying in qualitative research. The fourth one is the case study. We know about case study. You take a case and then you have an in-depth analysis of that case. Maybe a small number of units, maybe a person, an organization, an institution, a series of cases sometimes. So the idea here is the richness or depth of information that you're going to get. And when you take case studies, our intention probably is not to have that bit of generosity the way I say, but sometimes you might study cases and maybe you repeat in a manner that will show you certain trend, which can then give you an indication of some level of generalizability, and that extent you become more foolproof. So in terms of data, the methods that you can use to collect data for this, you can use individual interviews. You can have interviews. If they are unstructured, that would be better off. If they are semi-structured, it means some bit of it is open-ended, some are close-ended. And you use focus group discussions. And this is a small group. Some culture is there, some beliefs, and some demographics, so between around 6 to 10 people, participants. Then you can also use observations, so all the variations like participant observation, naturalistic observations, and direct observations can still be used. So then how do we observe? So if you are going to be an observer, researcher now becomes observer. You can observe through techniques like written descriptions. You record observations using field notes, for example. Or you can use video recording. You can record people. And then you can use even photography. Take photographs and artifacts. You do documentation. Maybe you rely on documents, policies, mission statement, and all that. And then you handle your data. So how do you handle the data? Remember that the data that you handle here exists in in stories. So and you have it in form of field notes, photos, videos, and even documents. So what you do with them is to be able to transcribe them. So you take all that data and you turn it into written versions. That's what the easiest way to start managing it. This is called transcribing or transcription or something like that. And then you begin to take it through the processes of analysis. And there are many processes today. People are slowly becoming aware of various ways of managing it, including even computerized systems. You can have the network analysis, and you refer to people like Rogers and Kincaid on how to use network analysis to manage such data. Or you can use computerized data analysis, Atlas, NVivo, and NuDist. There are many of those methods that can be used. You use also maybe tape analysis. You play the tape, you play the recording so many times, having a playback system which enables you to go through that so many times, and so you can have a quick impression about this. And then number 4, you can have thematic analysis or code analysis. Thematic analysis is one of the most important methods here. And from that data which you have transcribed, you isolate themes and categories from it. Talk about the themes and categories, and you are able to check the extent to which those themes and categories are repeated across the data that you have collected. So look at that, and then you get through the stepwise process of managing such kind of data. Reading the transcript, noting down, looking through those key issues that you want to get from your data, and then you are categorizing them based on the types, and then you're identifying the categories and information and placing them, and then you classify all the other statements under each and every one of them. That could be those processes of analysis of content. Then how do you present such kind of data? Very simple to present. Ideally, you present through themes or major categories, and I think that would be very easy. I've seen many situations where now if you have them in categories and themes, it's quite easy to present them. You can present through quoting, you can present through the reported speech, you can do through indentation, you can do through narration. So there are a number of ways you can go through these methods. So then, ladies and gentlemen, that could really have summarized what we mean by qualitative socioeconomic. But the in thing about it is that it goes beyond the quantitative methods to the lives, to the experiences, to the thinking and the beliefs of the people you are studying, so that the relationship between you and the one you are researching is so cordial, such that you become a participant. You also become a learner. You learn. It might require you to stay much longer in that place, but you tend to get more credible information. The only issue that people have raised is maybe biasness, but people still continue to ask, so which research is not biased? So you look at all that. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop that one there, and I want to keep encouraging you to not forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to this channel for much more engaging sessions that I have for you, only on Professor Silas Odongo's Knowledge Hub. Thank you.